Welcome to this final tutorial on Blender cheat sheets, and I hope that so far, if you've been following through in this tutorial and you've been using the add-on, that you're getting a lot of cathartic relief just because you don't have to remember all of those shortcuts, and you've got buttons now that you can press, and those buttons have got labels, and those buttons, they just work. And when you can't remember what the shortcut is, you can just look at the button, look at the word, and look at the shortcut, and you can get your work done. Oh, what a relief. Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to be covering the last couple of sections in one shot, only because I don't really use them. So by now you know how to open up your end panel, and we're going to be looking at camera and render. Now, a couple of precursor warnings here. I'm not really an expert on the camera and the render because I'm actually exporting to a game engine pipeline. But because I do hope that this add-on is helpful for a little bit more of a broader spectrum, I felt it was very important to include the 3D language generally in this cheat sheet system so that newbies coming to it are introduced to the basic concepts right at the start. So let's get this done so that you can get back to your 3D modeling and your 3D practice. First thing inside of a scene is that you'll notice that there is always a camera by default for the default scene, and there's a little marker here right at the top of this subsection to show you whether or not you've got something selected. That's just a reminder. Now let's move through this quickly. Walk mode, as you know, it's a repeat of the viewport button, and this allows you to WASD. And if you move your mouse wheel, you can go faster and slower while you are pressing WAS and D, and your mouse movement will change how you're looking at the scene or the orientation of your camera or your viewport. Now, I'm only going to focus on what I do know. The next one is look through camera. If I'm somewhere in the scene, whoops, let me undo that quickly, and I want to see what that camera is looking at. This is a repeat of the viewport functionality where you can toggle camera view and align camera to view. But I felt it was very important to include it in the camera section because we're dealing with camera-centric functions here. Look through camera basically means I'm going to snap to whatever my camera is looking at, and if I click it again, I'm going to snap out of that and go back to my last viewport view that I was looking at the scene. Move camera to current view. Let me just expand this a little bit. It's a bit of a long-winded sentence that. If I want to move my camera to what I'm looking at, for instance, I go, yeah, okay, I like what I'm looking at. Oh, that's totally ugly, or blah, blah, blah. Then I can go move camera to current view. And the camera will snap to what I'm looking at with my current viewport mode. At any time, if I want to, I can just middle mouse wheel out and break myself away from the camera view, and I'm back to just navigating with my orbit mode in viewport. Now, the one thing that I felt was important to include in this, because I do sometimes use the camera, mostly when I want to do a still shot render for a piece of artwork for my game. So I've created a scene, it's lit and all the rest of it, and I want to set up the camera ready for a still shot render so I can use it as a piece of art. This is the time that I will use it, and I don't really use it much beyond that. But what I felt was a little bit more useful, specifically because I don't want to think about my tools. My tools must be second nature. I want to think about what I'm doing in the 3D scene. So I just felt it was very important to include the most important functionality related to camera, which is exposing my camera settings. I can now, on the fly, I can change my focal length immediately, and I don't have to worry about brain drain. Where do I find it? What do I set it? What was the shortcut key? Where's that sub-menu inside of a menu, inside of a menu, inside of a menu? I don't work like that. I don't think like that. I don't do like that. So focal length is a very fast way for you to set your focal length of the camera, but you will also notice, for some of you who are a little bit more experienced, if you're working inside of a very constrained scene, very tight area, and you're struggling to see what's happening, and you're in viewport mode, you can do the same thing in viewport mode. You can change your field of view there too. And this is very funky because sometimes if I'm modeling in a very tight indoor scene, I know straight away what am I going to do. I'm actually going to make my field of view smaller and smaller, meaning I'm going to set my focal length to like 23, maybe 35, something with a much smaller value to increase that fisheye effect. And that is very useful just so that I can model a bit more efficiently inside of a very constrained, very claustrophobic scene. And you can do this now from not only your viewport, but you can also do it when you are in your camera. You can also do it for your camera. And that, I feel, is a very efficient workflow. Some of the cinematic guys out there working in production houses, you're going to find this useful because you don't have to struggle to find menus. Okay, I'm not going to go into depth of field because the more professional pros, you'll know what that's all about. But basically, you can see already, very juicy. You can set your f-stop and you can set your focus distance. I know you're going to love me for it. It's okay. I accept the love. Okay, so now let's get out of this and look back at the scene again. And you'll notice that right now we've only got one camera in the scene. So if I've got everything deselected, let's see what happens when I click Select Camera Object. Basically, it's going to highlight and select the current camera in that scene. We're going to now do this another way. I'm going to click Add Another Camera. And now you'll notice that little orange dot highlighted as I click that, and you can verify when you look in the scene collection or the scene tree. If I grab it out, you'll see, oh, I did add another camera. So now, I'm not too sure if this will work, but let's see what happens if I select camera object. It's going to select the first one. Let's see what happens if I click it again. Oh, it'll stay with that. So remember, for now, this is just to select the first camera that you have in your scene, and I'm all right with that. Besides this, I'm not going to dwell on this because this is not my expertise on handling multiple cameras in the same scene. But if you feel that you need a bit extra functionality on this, please drop me a suggestion, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on my handle on GitHub, and I will seriously consider adding it in and refining this functionality just for you. Okay. Let's move on to render. Now, render, I'm going to skirt over very quickly because I'm not even going to be rendering anything for you, but I'm just going to show you the stuff that I don't want to menu hunt for, because all I want to do is I want to do a still. I'm not interested in doing complex things here. I'm not a render expert. I just want to sometimes do a very simple render of stuff. So the most important thing that I felt was very vital to be exposed right from the start, because it's such a obtuse thing to wrap your mind around, is the render engine, which you can set immediately without having to think about where it is, in what icon was that hiding under. I can't remember the shape of the icon. Was it blue one, red one, green one, circle one, square one? You don't have to think anymore. I want to think about this. I don't want to think about this. I don't want to see my tool. When I walk into my workshop and I pick a tool off the shelf, I know what my tool does. I don't want to read an instruction manual every time I want to use my tool. So I've just placed all of the tools in a very funky cheat sheet format so that I don't have to think about it. For the more experienced guys, you're going to know about render image and render animation and all the rest of it, but I'm not going to be climbing into this because I'd like you to experiment with this. I don't use it much. I only use it incredibly sparingly, but you've got all the key variables now exposed and the key settings, and this for me is very nice because this is a little bit too invisible for me in the way that I work. Okay, let's bring this to an end, and in the last little section, this is not even going to be explained. This is where you want to find out a bit about the vision of Blender cheat sheets, what it can do. You'll find that there is a clone of my GitHub repo that's on blender.org, and also there's this YouTube channel, so you can find it anywhere, and there is no paywall, there's no registration. You can just download it for free. Remember that Blender Cheat Sheets is free for life. If you find it useful, I welcome your support so I can keep refining this and sticking with the LTS versions. I'm not looking at supporting betas, alphas, or release candidates because I'm in a production environment. I don't have time for that. I want my tools to be solid, and I want them to simply work. All of these tutorials so far, they work on Blender 3.6 LTS because it doesn't crash. I've been using Blender 4.2. It crashes too frequently even already, and that's the LTS version. But I have tested this on 4.2 LTS, and I do verify that it works. I'm not going to claim that it works on anything else, but try it out. If it works on anything between that or a little bit newer than that, let me know. I will only be focusing on the most stable production-ready versions of Blender. I'm looking for LTS specifically, and for now I'm in no rush to leave Blender 3.6 LTS just because it's incredibly stable. Okay, thank you for following along in these tutorials. I hope you found a lot of help in this. You know what my handle is already, you know what I do, you know what I am offering to you, and you know this is going to stay under GPL version 2, and I welcome your support. See you guys in the future, and have an awesome day.